Hello everyone. Okay, today we'll be doing something a little different because this was all going to be something that I don't actually have a pattern for this, but I used to go out sometimes to the to this, these kind of areas where they have got several shops all around and they've got a lot of clothing and all that. So sometimes I go out with my friends, and while they're actually looking for clothes to buy, I'm actually eyeing all the clothes with the, with the eye of a knitter, hoping to find something that's interesting and trying to create a pattern from there, you see. And I saw this, I've also seen it on that Alibaba Express or something, that very huge online retail shop where you can buy all this knitted wear, ready-made clothes and all these kind of things. I think it's called Alibaba Express, not very sure. Anyway, so the pattern is, the one that I saw and I'm interested in doing is this, this here, Oh, sorry, this is my game. Pillars of Eternity. It's a tactical turn-based game. Okay, now here, this is the pattern. I hope you can see. I know I really draw very badly, and no matter how much I draw, I don't seem to improve, When I was in Standard 4 in Malaysia, I had a Chinese friend, because in Malaysia we have Chinese, Indians, Malays and all that. And she, the teacher would give us a project, she'll say, okay, there is this time, sometimes they'll actually tell you what you're going to have to do for painting, but sometimes she'll come and say, free painting, And this girl, she is so amazing. She'll just, I think her name was Wing Fong. She's so amazing. What she'll do is that she'll do just out of the blue, she'll draw a waterfall, maybe a picnic scene, or she'll do a fishing scene, or, just teeming with life and color. God, I finish my painting very, really fast. If they say free painting means I'll draw concentric squares or something like that, and color them all differently so that they give that geometrical look and all that. And then I'll go watch her paint, I think 3/4 of her class was doing that, because she was so talented. Well, anyway, I'm one of those people who can never draw, oddly enough, she became a lawyer. She didn't actually continue to do that painting when she grew older. Okay, so what I wanted to say was that, show you was this particular drawing of mine to tell you, give you an idea what this pattern is and what we're going to be doing. And mind you, I don't have a pattern. I have no measurements, nothing. So what we'll be doing is we'll be taking a t-shirt that fits you very, very well, and from there we'll work the measurements so that you can wear it and it should fit you. And hopefully, if what I have, the idea that I have is going to work, and what this will be is a work in progress, in the sense that as we go along, I will come up with an idea of how to do, and if something doesn't work, I will change it, So don't get mad at me, because I know I've done that also in other videos. So somewhere in the middle of the video, I changed my mind about the way that I'm progressing, and I suppose people who don't watch the whole video will probably find themselves not understanding why the thing doesn't come out the way that it's supposed to, because somewhere in the middle of the video I would have changed, you see. And that's why I also cannot give written patterns, because several people have come onto my channel and asked me on some of the patterns that I have, whether I have written instructions or can I annotate and stuff like that. I really can't, first because I talk too much, and if I'm going to sit down and write down everything that I'm saying there, it's really going to take a really long time. Second, the closed caption that YouTube provides is total rubbish, okay, because it's not, it can't understand the program that they're using. It can't understand my accent, my Malaysian accent. So it always puts some really, really off the world kind of translations as to what I'm saying, And I'm surprised, I'm actually talking in English, but apparently, the accent must be so strong that the program just can't pick it up, you see. So I'm really sorry if you're following the closed caption and it says something about aeroplanes and I don't know, one was somebody, I don't know how they managed to put the word machete in one of my videos. Anyway, here, okay, so this is the pattern that I wanted to show you. Okay, now this pattern, actually the sleeves are detached, it's off shoulder. You've got these hanging sleeves here, they're going to be done completely separately. And then what we will do is we'll put them back onto the loom, the sleeve and this curve here and work half of it in a very short rib. The pictures that you will see of these kind of sweaters, you will probably see them with a thicker rib. I don't think I can actually manage a thicker rib if we are going to work it on this kind of a loom, you know. This is the 50 peg loom, the long loom 50 pegs, because the max I'm going to be doing here is about 18. Of course, if you need around 22, because you need around 44 inches for it to fit you, then you take the 62 peg loom. The 50 peg loom can only manage 18 inches, you know. And this will be the yarn. It's jeans blue jeans kind of color, you know. It's 3.5 to 4 millimeter. I'll be using just one strand, you know. So it will be very kind of lacy look you'll get to it, you know. And I'm hoping to use the linen stitch, you know. And there is a variation done by this lady on YouTube. It's brilliant because she cuts down the step, so makes it so much more easier to work the linen stitch, that instead of moving to the back and all that. She's really, really good. I will put a link in my video for you to be able to follow how she does it, but I'll also show you how to do it. And this is 40% pure wool, 60% acrylic, and it's a 50-gram ball, but it's a long ball. It's about 140 meters or 153 yards. This really, I've got about 15 balls of this, you know. And I think I have more than enough, because I've been really making a lot of mistake with my calculations, and I have run out more than once and being forced to look for a similar color to finish the pieces that I've done, you know. So basically we'll be doing two back and front that will look exactly the same like this, with the ribbing and then the linen stitch with this kind of a cut. So you'll have to decrease to form this curve, you know, from your armpit all the way to the neck. That's why we'll be using a round neck t-shirt, you know, to get the measurements. So if you have a round neck t-shirt, we'll come back and I'll show you how to take the measurements. The sweater is not very long. You can make it between 18 and 20 inches. I will probably make it around 20 maybe, you know. So make it a bit bigger, you know. Sorry, make it a bit longer. So we'll make it 20 inches. Then I will also give you the measurements for the sleeves. The sleeves, we will do them as a single sleeve. And then we will divide it into half and mark it. Then from the mark point, you put it back onto the loom. And then you put back from the armhole to the neck. And you work this in rib. Do the same for the back. Also for the other side. Then you put the whole back once I've got the t-shirt ready. And I'll show you how to take the measurements. Now the t-shirt I was trying to tell you is this, actually this one, in the male version of this is called a wife beater. What an unfortunate name for a t-shirt. I wonder whether it got its name because of the way that those men who come back from work and wear these kind of t-shirts used to actually spend their time beating their wives. Anyway, that's really a terrible name for a shirt, really. Anyway, this is the female version of it. Now make sure that when you get this kind of a t-shirt, that it's not too tight. If it is too tight, all your measurements will be wrong, because the thing stretches, you know, because after all it's a jersey kind of material, and so it really stretches, you know. So as far as possible, try to get something that's loose fitting, you know, onto your body. And even after you take these measurements, make sure that you wear it and then take it again while you are on the mirror, and then you wear it and then stand in front of the mirror and take the measurements again, okay? Now this one isn't very wide, you know, because as I told you, this is actually t-shirt material, so jersey material. So, you know, it's here, you see it's about 15 inches, and at the bottom it's about 17 inches, and ours would be about 18 actually, you know. So yeah, this is about 17 inches at the bottom and about 15 inches here, you know. So don't bother about this part. What we are most interested in is this curve here, this curve, you see. And this one, it goes in all the way by 2 inches. So this is the amount that you have to make your curve go in when you are doing this part of the, you let it go in for about 2 inches from the 18. So you have 2 inches in, 2 inches in here, and then it goes straight up. So this part here will be the 2 inch indentation will be a bit sharp, you know, inward, for you to get in, you know. So here you have 2 inches. Now, even after you've taken this measurement, I suggest that you stand in front of the mirror and measure how much 2 inches in, and whether you're comfortable with the deepness of the cut of the curve, you know. If you want something even deeper, then go ahead and make it even deeper, you know. That is entirely up to you. So we've got 2 inches, and it will go around that amount right up to the top. So here will be 18, you know, when you start off, and then it will go down, and you will remove 4 inches. And so this center bit here, this part here, what am I doing with my tape measure? It's not the same. This measurement is going to be the same. So here you will end up with 14 inches, this part of it. Okay, that will be 14 inches. Hope you can, sorry, didn't show you that properly. Here, there's 2 inches here and 2 inches here. So when you minus these 2, it will become 14 inches. Okay, so now you've got the measurement of this, more or less. So we'll have to work, we will cast on for all of the pegs, the 50 pegs. You will work a rib, then we'll come back and we'll work the linen stitch. And when you reach here, you will have to reduce both sides and bring it in by 2 inches, and then you go straight up from there. I'll give more precise instructions when we reach there. Okay, the first thing you're going to have to do is you cast on. You can use the chain cast on for 50 stitches, and then you work 1 row of purl, 1 row of knit. Do this 5 times, so you get 10 rows. 5 of them will be purl and 5 of them will be knit. You alternate the purl and the knit rows. Now, one of the reasons why I don't make a rib right at the bottom, but instead I have a garter bottom, is because I want it to be, I don't want it to roll, but at the same time I don't want the rib effect at the bottom. I want it to stay flat, you know, not constrict at the bottom, you know. And ribbing has a tendency to make the part that you work sort of narrow down, you know, and I don't want it to do that, you know, because I want the jumper to just fall flat, you know, and not go towards the bottom and then tighten itself towards the bottom. I don't want that pinched effect that ribbing gives, you see. And after you've done that, you work the after you finish the garter bottom, then you start on the stitch proper, which is the linen stitch, and you work it. I've decided, because, you know, I had forgotten earlier when I told you 2 inches that we have to work this extra bit here, you see. So I've decided to make the sleeve go in for about 3 inches, therefore leaving you this part to be 12 inches, because this and this will come up to 6. 18 minus 6 is 12. So when we reach from here to here is 8 inches. So when you reach the 10-inch point, we will start the decreases for the armhole. And I'll come back and I'll show you how to do the linen stitch. The way, I think her name is Kimberly Callahan, I think. I'm not very sure what her name is. Okay, I'm going to show you how to do the linen stitch as shown by Kimberly Carrigan. She's got a video out. I'll put a link in the description, and it's really brilliant the way she works the linen stitch. It makes it so much more easier than the way that the linen stitch is normally worked on the loom, you know. So, okay, the first stitch you just knit it like you normally would knit a stitch. Knit. Now the second stitch, you work it like you're going to do a purl. So you lift it, but instead of taking out the stitch, hang on, let me get that stitch properly. Now usually what you do is you lift this and then put back this stitch onto the peg, but in this case you just put it over the peg without removing anything. That is called, she calls it a purl over. Kimberly Carrigan, no? She calls it a purl over, and that is basically how you work a linen stitch. And there are 2 rows to do a, oh sorry, I did the thing that I wasn't supposed to do. I was supposed to only just place it at the back. No, that didn't work. Okay, after you did that one, now the second one, you just purl it and you put it over. Knit, and this one you purl over. Knit, and then you purl this over. Keep doing that all round, and on the next row when you return, the stitches that you purled over you knit, and the ones that you knit you now purl over. That will make the, and you keep doing that over and over again. Okay, now we are on the last few stitches. We just finished a purl back. You know that it's a purl back because you can tell, because the yarn will be behind the peg. It won't be caught up in the stitching at all. You see, you can see that, you know, that's how you know that this was the purl back. In case you lose count and don't know where your stitch is, you do your knit. Next one is your purl back again. Knit. A purl back. And a knit. So the final stitch is a knit. Now when you go back, you reverse whatever you've done before. So if you did a purl back here, you now do a knit. As long as you maintain a even number of pegs for your work, you will always start with a knit. Just remember that even after you do your decreases, it will still remain an even number of pegs, because these are 50 pegs, and when you reduce them, they will remain even. And this will complete the, and you keep on doing this exactly like this. You just, the ones that you did the purl back, you knit, and the ones that you knit, you do the purl back. Okay, that's it. That's the end of it, and we'll come back when we have to do the decreases. Okay, I've done quite a few rows. This was the garter bottom, and you see it's not very wide, but what it effectively does is it makes it stay flat, and also doesn't distort the bottom by pinching it. And this is the linen stitch. I know it doesn't look like how the linen stitch is when Luma had, or you know, even the one Kimberly did. The reason is very simple. It's because my yarn is very thin, and for these pegs, you see, so what happens is that I've got a lacy, you know, it's more loose, you see, as a result. So you've got this effect going, as you can see. It's very different from what a twisted stocking net would look like. But what is more surprising is how it looks inside, at the back. You see? It has a very nice look also at the back, you see. So you can decide. I kind of like what it looks like at the back. You can decide which can be the front and which can be the back, you know. So this is how linen stitch looks like when it is done very loosely, you know. There's nothing much I can do to tighten it because this was the result of the yarn, really. This is 4mm yarn, you know. So that means it uses 4mm knitting needles or crochet hook, and this is the effect it has on the this type of these size pegs. You know, these are not as fat as the ones that are on the round looms. You know, the round loom pegs are much bigger than these, you know, and so this particular peg already gives this kind of effect. So you can't use this one strand on the round loom, you know, but even on this long loom you can see that it's pretty airy, you know, but it's very soft, and I think when you finish it, it'll give a very nice very soft and pliable sweater, you know. And if you were to do this, if you have the Serenity loom, the pegs are a little closer, you know. So I think it might work better on the Serenity loom. That is only if you want your linen stitch to look much more dense, you know. Mine doesn't, of course, you know, but this is entirely up to you. After looking at this thing, which I have measured now, actually it is not 18. I meant, because I think probably because the stitches are so loose as a result of the fact that the yarn itself is quite thin, I have actually managed to get 20 inches in the diameter instead of the 18, you know. 18 is probably when the yarn is doubled up, you know, when you have two strands of 4mm yarn, you will get about 18, you see, but now I'm getting around 20, so I've had to adjust the pattern as a result. Now actually all these things that you work, every pattern that you're working is dependent on the kind of yarn that you have, how loosely you knit, what type of pegs. So, you know, you have to keep all this in mind, and as you work, which is one of the reasons why my patterns keep changing as I work with them, you have to take all this into account, because if you want something to fit you properly, you have to keep all these parameters in mind and work along with them, you know. So this is, I've done about 10 inches now. I'm coming towards the part where I'm going to have to do the, and this is the back part of it, you know. I was telling you about the type of stitching that is at the back, and you can compare it to the front, which is where the linen stitch is. As you can see, even after a considerable length has been done, the linen stitch has not become tighter. It's only because of the fact that this yarn is pretty thin, and therefore it gives a bit of a, you know, kind of a lacy kind of appearance, you know. So you're going to have very soft, very pliable, but really quite nice sweater at the end of it, you know. So what was I saying? Yeah, that's right. So I've also revised my length because I found that 20 inches perhaps is a very, very short length, you know, I'm giving for this sweater. So I've decided to go with 22. So 8 inches from the top means at 14 inches we will be doing the decreases for the sleeve, and I've worked it out here. Now at 14 inches you will work the armhole, and since we're going to be reducing 8 pegs, which is how much 3 inches is, and the 8 pegs is 3 inches. How did I get that? Actually it'll probably be more than that. One sec. Calculated that again, because earlier I had given it 18 inches and we just discovered that because of the looseness it's now actually 20 inches, but it's still around 8 pegs. So what we will do is that you have to reduce 1 peg on every row, you know, and over 8 rows, so you will have a balance of 34 pegs at the end of it. So you will cast off 1 peg here, 1 peg on the same row. You have to take off 2 pegs every time when you do the decrease. Okay, we'll come back when we reach the point which is 14 inches and I'll show you how to do the decreases. We've come up to the point where we're going to do the decreases I was talking to you about. This is about 14 inches now, so it's time to do the decreases on both sides. As you can see here, this is the beginning and this is the end of the thing. So we'll be doing 1 decrease here and 1 decrease here. Now I think because you might forget to do the decreases, I suggest you do the decrease immediately, so that when you come to the last one, you would have finished doing the decrease. So just an advice, because you know why? Because if you go to do the decrease and then you forget this decrease, and then you remember the next row, well, since you're doing a decrease every row, not every other row, maybe you might not forget. But anyway, I usually, if I'm going to do decreases on both sides, I do it immediately. This way I don't forget that I need to do it. Oh, my screensaver just changed. No, it's not a screensaver actually. On my computer, what I did was I created a folder and I put all these freshwater tanks and landscaping, for fishes. Because when I was living in Singapore, I basically all my life actually, even when I was young in Kelantan, I used to keep freshwater fish, and I used to breed them and do all this kind of stuff. But you can't here, it's so expensive here in Europe, because you have the heating and you make the fishes also cost a lot and all that, and I really miss it. So what I did was I just went on the internet and I looked for all these pictures of lovely fish tanks that people have and all these aquascaping that they do, and I created a folder, and then I put the background, the desktop background to go into this folder, and I've got like 40 pictures in there, and it keeps on rotating these 40, and it's all freshwater fishes, and right now I've got some of these ones with those red shrimps, I think they're called blood shrimps or something like that, with a little bit of tetras and guppies rolling about. Such a lovely scene. I really miss keeping fish. Okay, back to this. All right, now what we do is here, all you need to do is that this is the last stitch. Let me see whether you can see or not. This is the last stitch. Okay, so you just take the second stitch. The idea is to have the last stitch go over the second stitch, okay. Go over. That's one stitch reduction. Now take this back and put it back on this thing here. Okay. Same thing here. I don't think this will. Oh, let me try. Always a second. Pick up the second stitch and put it onto the last stitch. Okay, there you go. So now you have reduced both the stitches at the end. 2 stitches gone. So do this every row for 8 rows, and then after that you work the rest of the length in the same linen stitch until you get a length of 22 inches cast off. That's it. So do this reduction every row until you have taken off 16 stitches, leaving you with 34 pegs. Okay, here I've taken off 4 stitches already, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 4 stitches. In case you're wondering why I'm doing this on a pillow, was because I found that my neck was giving me problems, because when I was doing it on my lap, I was actually bending my head down, and as a result, I was actually causing a bit of pain on the cervical, the cervical connection, the bone there, So I suggest, because it's a repeated action, you're constantly moving down your head, and these kind of things really take a toll on your body. So try to reduce the amount of curvature on your neck, So this is why now I sit on a chair, I put a pillow, and then I use the Loom on top of the pillow. Believe me, all these kind of things will save you, because if you're going to be doing this for years and years and years, try to reduce the amount of damage that you do to your body with these constant actions. Now, I just wanted to tell you that here, I told you to do it 8 times, right? I decided to do it 9 times. Let's reduce it 18 stitches. That means 9 stitches on each side. That will give you 18, giving you a total of 32 stitches in the end. Okay? Another thing, make sure when you're working, don't let this thing pop off, and then you don't realize. So keep on checking every time to see that the last stitch is in place, And in this respect, I must admit that the pillow has become very handy, because the wool tends to stick to the surface of this fabric. You see, if you use it on a tabletop or something more smooth, the tendency is for the stitches here will have no traction, you know, it will not stay on the surface, you see, and it will come out. So try and keep in mind that, you know, your whole project can unravel if you don't watch that your stitches are not popping off at the end, because when you do these reductions, every row, it becomes very chunky, you know, towards the end. One side will be becoming more and more thicker, and it doesn't have that tension, you know, to keep it on the pegs. So be careful, and they can just pop off. So keep that in mind. Don't be careless. And then after all that work that you have done, especially this linen stitch is not really that easy to work, and it's very slow going, not like the twisted stockinette, which is very, very fast. So just keep that in mind. Keep an eye on your pegs, constantly count them, make sure that nothing has popped off. I finished the reduction, and I think it's because of the nature of the linen stitch. You've got this funny little bulk here, you know. I'm hoping that once you finish, see, it just piles up like that. I think it's because of the linen stitch, you know. Let me see how this goes, and hopefully when I'm done a few more rows, it just naturally straightens out. Basically what I've done is that I've created a kind of a little flap over, you know, and I counted these thing that they are exactly 9, which is the 9 stitches that I removed. And I think the reason is because if you have noticed, the linen stitch, you actually skip one stitch and you only knit one stitch, you know. The other stitch you're actually not working it, you know, you're just placing the yarn behind the stitch, and therefore that stitch is not worked. And I think by decreasing, I went and screwed up something and created this little overlap. Well, I'm not going to take it out. I'm going to keep this, and I will warn you that if you're going to use any other stitch, you probably will not get this effect. So if you want to deliberately get this, you will have to work it in linen stitch. And using the method, the linen stitch, and continue working the linen stitch even when you're doing the decreases, and you will get this little overhang. This is totally accidental, and I don't really know how it's going to look overall, because I never even planned for something like this. Let's see how it comes out in the end. Okay, here it is. I have already taken it off the loom. I just merely cast off, you know, here. And of course this is my weird effect that I managed to create because of the linen stitch. If you're using any other stitch, you won't get this effect. You'll get just a smooth thing, you know. This happened because the stitch that I moved when I did the every reduction was always the one where the pearl back was. So the pearl back stitch is actually not stitched, you see. So what happened was that it created like a shortening of the row, you know. And as a result, it created this little flap here, you know. Of course, now it looks like a design, so it doesn't really look bad. But, you know, I mean, when I didn't even realize it had been done, you see. So, but I don't intend to do the same thing for the back. So there, you can have a look at it. That's how the front looks. And we'll be working on the back. And the back will be done in twisted stockinette. Exactly the same measurements with the decreases for the arm here. Alright, then after that we'll come back and work on the sleeves. I wanted to point out something, you know. Remember when I asked you to do the decreases, and I said to do both the decreases at the same time? You will notice that one I actually knitted and then I did the decrease, and the one on the other side I didn't do that. I just merely moved the stitch to the last and then did the decrease. Now as a result of doing that, you will have these kind of loops, you know, this one here. Now if you don't want these loops, you see, the reason I do the thing at the same time is because I don't want to forget. And the thing I dislike the most when I'm doing loom knitting is having to take stitches off a few rows because I've forgotten to do a stitch at the end, you know. And this kind of loom work, it's not like real, you know, the knitting that you do with needles or even crochet, where you can just pull the thread and, you know, go back to the point where you stop, and you can just pick up the stitches very, very easily. You can't do that with loom knitting, you know. Loom knitting, you have to painstakingly take out all the stitches in a row one by one, so that you don't make a mistake to come back to the row that you've made the mistake, you see. So because of this, that is one of the reasons why I always do the decreases immediately. But the proper way to do it is, you see, this is a decrease that is done properly. This is the one where I was on the opposite side and merely just moved the last stitch without actually knitting it off. So if you want a better decrease look, if you want a neater, prettier decrease curve, I suggest that you, if you've got a better memory, or you actually keep a counter or some way that you can check that you're doing the decreases at the same time, then by all means do the decrease one at a time. Do one side, then when you reach the other side you knit, and then you move the stitch to the last, and then you finish it off, you see. So this way you will get a better curve. Okay, because of the nature of the linen stitch and the way that the front part of the sweater, the way that it's formed, that kind of a overlap, bit of like a frill, I don't want to do the sleeve from the wider point to the narrower point. So what we're going to do is we're going to work from the wrist up. So you cast on 20 stitches, 20 pegs for 8 inches. If depending on your wrist size, you take that measurement. If it's 9, it will be 9 times by 50 divided by 20 inches, because I noticed that the linen stitch gives about 20 inches for 50 pegs instead of the 18 inches that twisted stocking net had. So I have slightly varied my calculations, taking into account that the linen stitch makes the 50 pegs wider. Instead of the 18 inch, I got 20 inches, you see. So we cast on exactly 20 pegs, and you increase it in intervals, 8 stitches on each side. So you'll get 16 extra inches, 16 and extra pegs, giving you 36 pegs at the end, and a width of 14 inches. So it will grow from 8 to 14. So you take your own measurement. If it is 10 inches, your wrist, or if it's less, if it's 6 inches, then it's 6 times by 50. Mind you, you have to give enough allowance for the hand to go through. So don't make it too tight, the wrist. 8 inches is just nice actually. 8 times by 50 divided by 20 gives you 20 pegs. And the top part is about 14 inches, and that's 36 pegs. So what you can do is, because the length of the sleeve is about 20 inches, you can increase this after the rib that you do, that is the knit one, purl one for the rib, which is about maybe 2 inches. After you do the rib, you can, then there is 18. So you can, for every inch, you can do an increase of 1 peg on one side until you get 14 inches on the top. Do 2 sleeves and we'll come back and I'll show you how to do the joints to give you that this effect here once the sleeve is done. I just wanted to show you what I've done on the sleeve so far. This is the wrist part where I've done a knit one, purl one rib, and it's narrower as it goes up. Now here I have done the 1 stitch on each side extensions, and there is no folding. So you know what I was thinking, if you don't like the effect that this reduction gave with the linen stitches, I suggest you start from the top and then go down for the back and front if you don't like that frill, in front. I mean, that's the only thing I can suggest, because it's because of the pearl back, I think that was what she called it, I think, Kimberly Carrigan. She called it pearl back. Anyway, so if you don't want that and you want a normal looking thing, looking flat and without any kind of an overlap frill-like thing, then you just start from the top and then do the armhole and then go straight down with your linen stitches and then end with the garter at the bottom. That is the only advice I can give, you see. Because of, I didn't know that the stitch would do this, you see. I had no idea, I should have actually thought about it, When you do a decrease on a stitch that has not been stitched, what it does is actually it shortens it, you see. So when you keep on doing it over and over again, what it does is it creates a fold, you see. That was why it happened. Anyway, there's no way I'm going to take it out. I'm one of those people that, if there's something that happens, I'll try and make it work. Okay, I finished the sleeve and I have done only about 19 inches. The length of the sleeve is 19 inches. I decided to go for 19 instead of 20. Now, what you need to do about here now is that you don't cast off. What you do is that you take, since for me there are 36 stitches on the loom here, so you take off half the stitches and put it on a stitch holder, leaving half of it here. Now the sleeve folds. This is the fold of the sleeve, okay, here on this side. This is where the opening of the sleeve is, this part here, this one here, this one and this one, it joins up like this, right? Now it'll join up like this to make a sleeve. Now this part of it where it is joined is like this, it's in this direction from this diagram, okay, for this diagram. So you leave half of the stitches, that is the half that is from here all round. You go and count up to 18 because mine is 36, so 18 and 18 is 36, so up to 18 you leave it on the loom. The rest of the 18 you put it on a stitch holder. So after you've done that, we have to put the front onto the loom for us to stitch this part of it. For us to stitch this part, this is about 1.5 inches like that. So let's take off the stitches and put it on a stitch holder and leave the remaining stitches here. I have here the stitches that I've left on the loom, and here is the stitches on the stitch holder. Now before you put this part of the sleeve, this is the sleeve, the one that is, make sure that you have this part, the front part has to come out here, that means you are going to put it back onto the loom this way with the front side coming out here. All right, you just continue with this part here, but before you do that, count the number of stitches you will get here. Mine is just nice, it's around 49 like that to 50, or because I'll be taking here in the corner here to make it curve better. I will probably take 2 stitches here. I'll just pick another strand from somewhere here and hook it back onto the loom so that I can get a bit more of a curve. But if you find that your stitches here count to more than 50, then use the 62 peg loom. Put both of the stitches half onto a stitch holder, one half into the stitch holder and the other half into the stitch holder, and transfer these stitches into the longer loom, the one with the 62 pegs, so that you can fit all of these stitches together with the sleeve stitches back onto the loom. Now you actually hook this back, always remember, keep the right side facing you, put it in between the space that is here, and take the corner stitch that you're supposed to put and put it to the next peg here, Pick one stitch and put it back onto the loom. See, this is a corner stitch from the armhole. This is the armhole, as you can see. Okay, this is the armhole. So take a corner stitch and put it onto the loom here. Then pick up the next stitch. And then you just continue stitching, after that. So you don't have to worry that you have to join anything or put another thread in or anything like that. You just pick up another strand here. I'm trying to look for a strand so that I can put it on top. Okay, then you go to the next one and keep on doing that until you have put all of this from the armhole right up to the top here. To the top here, you put it back onto the loom. As you can see, I've put it all onto the loom. I've got about 3 stitches here that I've left out, you know, and it's pretty stretched out, you know, but don't worry about it. Once you start working the rib, it will sort itself out as it goes down. After you've joined everything, the yarn was coming out from here, the one from the sleeve, you know, that you didn't cut. You just do a twisted stocking net of all the stitches that you had put back onto the loom, and then from here, once you reach the end, from here you work a knit 1, purl 1 rib for about 1.5 inches. Okay, now I finished this. This is half the sleeve, okay? It has been connected to the front. This is about 2 inches. Now what you need, so another thing, once you've done the back, this part here will not be joined to the other part of the back, you know, because it will be done separately, you know. So you use the mattress stitch and join this to the back part before this for the other sleeve, and then we'll come back. Okay, here was the front, and this was the part of the sleeve that has been joined to the front. Okay, now we have to do the back. I have put back the stitches onto the loom, and we are going to join the back here. Okay, so you start joining the back from the armhole here up to the top, will come somewhere here, and later you will join this to this part here using mattress stitch or some other stitch to make it as invisible as possible, the join, you know, so that it doesn't look like you've joined it, this part here. Okay, this is part of the sleeve. Okay, so when you take the back, make sure you use it with the right side facing you. Right side facing you. This is the right side, because my back is done in twisted stocking net. Remember, I changed the stitch because I didn't want the frill in the back. Now you put it in between here, and you begin to bring to the armhole. This is the armhole, right? And you start placing the stitches, which is the corner stitch, this one. Okay, so place the stitches back, always pick the back stitch, place the stitches back onto the loom, next one, keep doing this, pick up the stitches, and when you come to the part here, pick 2 stitches so that you can get a nice little curve. Remember your just next peg after the sleeve. Continue doing that and work a 2-inch rib. If you keep a steady pace going, you can actually work this stitch very, very quickly. And if you're not sure where you are and you've lost your place, just move this and see whether this one is loose. If this is loose, then you know that you did the purl back in that round, you know. So that means this one has to be a knit. So if you're not sure what was the one before, you can easily see, because if it is a knit row, when you move the stitch up and down like this, the thread will follow, so you know that you did a knit the previous row, you know. I'm going to show it to you both hands so that you can work it and realize that it isn't that difficult actually to work with both. And what it does is that it really balances out the tension on the garment, you know. So you have better stitching, you have better, your garment has, the stitches even out better, you know, as a result. Okay, now we're coming to the last bit here. I turned, because I'm on the 10-inch, I'm almost going up to 12, you know. So you know you're always right if the stitch before the last is a purl back. Okay, now switch hands. Now we are on this hand again. So always you start off with a knit, and then you do the purl back. It's just looking the other side. You're coming with your right hand. You know, if you work it often enough, you'll be able to get the same speed for both your left and right hand, and it really helps you in the long run if you do this. So I really advise all you loomers out there to practice with both hands so that you can work them alternating one hand and the other, because then you really get better stitches. Your work is much more evened out. So if you tend to knit very tightly on one hand, the chances are you're not going to be doing the same with the other, you know. So try this technique, and hopefully it works for you. Working the sleeve, because you're going to be doing the from the bottom, you're going up, right? Because you work the rib, that is the knit one, purl one rib, and then you're doing every 2 inches you'll be increasing a stitch on each side. What happens is that for a whole row, it won't alternate, because no matter what you do, you will find that you will have one row where the 2 purl backs, instead of going on, that means they alternate. Here will be a purl back, then this should be a knit, but it won't be. You see here, for instance, here you see they have, it's going like a terrace, you know, one here, and then it goes here, and then here. But when you have you've extended the stitch by one, what will happen is that you will repeat one row of the same. So it will look, there will be one part of it that will look slightly off, and it's quite obvious where you've done the increases. But of course, if you don't point it out to anybody, I don't think anybody will notice, because anyway, hand knit items tend to look a bit more messier than the ones that you're done on the machine, you see. So so if you get this kind of effect, don't be alarmed. It is only because of the increases that you're doing on both sides. As a result of the increase, one row will just repeat, you know, exactly like the one previous to it. There's no way. I tried all kinds of methods to try and stop it from happening. In fact, I just worsened it. No, the other sleeve looks a bit bad because I ended up having like 3 rows of the same, and so it very obvious. And then I had gone up quite high before I realized I had done that, and no way was going to take it out. You know, I'm terribly lazy about such kind of things. You know, I tend to, any imperfections, I leave it in. Just thought I'd show you the increases. Okay, this is the row that I'm going to be increasing. I'm on the 12-inch point, so I'm doing a stitch on each side. All I do to increase the stitch is just double wrap here, then I knit over the double wrap, then I knit this again. Now the reason why this row becomes a repeat, like I explained, was you ended on a knit, you're going back to a knit, and this was a purl. Now because you did knit and knit, you have to do a purl here. Now if you try to do a knit here instead, what you will basically do is just postpone it. The next row again, you will end up with the same problem, you see. So when I tried to do that by trying to knit in a series of 3 so that I would get it correctly on that row, the next row it became wrong. So if you keep on changing and trying to keep it correct, you will just postpone the row in which it would repeat, you see. So it doesn't really make any sense for you to do that. So don't bother. Oops, sorry. Really shook the camera because I hooked onto it accidentally and it got shaken. So you've done one stitch on this side here. When you reach the end here, do the same thing. Double wrap and you'll get the stitches to extend on both sides. Now, when you're doing the sleeve, try and center the sleeve so that you can always check and see that you have done the correct number of increases, you know. Otherwise, you're going to have a problem if you don't exactly center your stitches when you start them off. Okay, now here we're trying to, you remember the two sides that we did the ribbing for the top part of the sleeve, no? One connecting to the front and one connecting to the back. Now you've got these two parts here that is on the halfway point of the sleeve, right in the center. You've got one part here and one part here that is not connected, you see. So now you have to connect this and make sure that you try and make the seam as invisible as possible, okay? I wanted to show you the join. I'll show you the join, okay? This is the back part of the join, as you can see. This is the back part. It's a bit thick here because I had to pick the ladder stitches like I mentioned, you know. And when you look in the front, you can't see that you have done a join. That is how you do an invisible join. Although at the back it shows quite thick here. This thing here is a thick join there, but in front it doesn't show at all, okay? And here you just try and close up the gap maybe with the leftover thread there, and your sleeve has been, this is a sleeve actually, as you can see the narrow part of the sleeve here, okay? And this is the invisible join that you have to do. There are lots of videos on YouTube on mattress stitch. Okay, I'm sewing the sleeve now. Now all I'm doing with this part of the sleeve is that, you know, these kind of sleeves, if you're worried, because this is quite a long sleeve, you know, and what you do is that you don't try to join it from one end like this, you know, from this end here where it starts all the way to the other side. You don't join it like that. You place it in sections, you know. It doesn't matter that you can cut, you cut it, the thread, and there are several points where the thread has to be tied up, you see. The reason is that if you join from one end to the other, you might not get the stitches, the sides to align properly, you see. So you just pick, like for instance here, I did the cuff first, I stopped here. Then I took a strand from here and worked all the way up to here. From here, the strand is here, you can see it. And I sewed it all the way up to the cuff. Then I'm using another strand here and I'm working this part here, and all I'm doing is that here, because the stitches are very uneven, you know, these linen stitches, so all I'm doing is that I'm picking one strand from here going through the other. Don't pull it tight, all right, because everything is pretty loose here right now, you know, so don't pull it tight. Just go from one to the other, and you can skip a stitch, you know. See, this is the reason why you have them aligned like this, and you go through one, you have them aligned here. This is where the gap is. You just place them like that next to each other, and then you go through like that. It's not using mattress stitch or anything like that, you know. It's just a simple, very easy to do. All you're doing is picking one strand and going to the other side. And as you work, you will notice it will close up. And since it's a seam, it doesn't matter, you see, because it's the seam of the sleeve. And because you have segmented it as you are sewing, what happens is that you get a better seam, you see, because you're not trying to go from one end to the other. And every now and then check that it looks okay. Yeah, it looks okay, right? Can't even be seen. This is where the seam is. Okay, try and do that. Finished. I've joined it all up, except that the yarn has not been sewn back in, you know, so it's all hanging about, but it's all joined up, you know. And I found that it's actually not necessary for me to fold this in, because then it makes this ribbed part too short, you know, if I were to fold it in and sew it in. But the sleeve is a bit long, very long in fact. But then, you know, you've got that kind of look these days where people wear this really loose sleeves, you know, they kind of hang. So, you know, it doesn't really look bad. But what I need to do here is that I need to do a rib for the collar here. a neckline. But since, you know, I was hoping to make this all on the loom, I'm going to divide this into half, put half of it back onto the loom, and work a rib for about 1 inch. Do the same to the front, work 1 inch rib, and then join the sides up to make a complete ribbed collar. Okay, then it will be done. Well, I really hope you try this, but this pattern is not easy. And since it mainly, and I try to do this from just looking at all these kind of pictures and all that. So, you know, I was all, you know, all trial and error, you know. So you have to watch the whole video, you know, because I keep changing my mind about doing stuff, you know. So if you watch it halfway and get all the instructions wrong, don't come and blame me about that. But anyway, this is a tough pattern. So the last bit, put this back onto the loom and do a 1 inch rib, and then we're done. So I put it back onto the loom, and I made these for the back and the front. I made these 2 ribs of 6 rows, and the 7th row I cast off. But the thing is, I can't close it. If I close it, I can't put it, it won't go over my head. It won't go over, and it will be stuck above my head. So I can't wear it, you see. So I've split it. I've not joined it up. What you need to do now is that, you see the corner here, you need to fold it down like that, so that the collar sticks up like that, you see. So it looks like a extension of a neckline, you know, and it doesn't look like you have actually done a ribbed collar, but just like a stand-up thing, you know, that comes up from here, and it wouldn't look so awkward when you wear it. Okay, now this pattern is a bit you know, a bit complicated, you know. See, the linen stitch is what caused this thing here, and here is all the ribbing, and the back, of course, I have done in twisted stocking net, you know. And as I said, this part you have to fold it in. Anyway, I said you have to fold it. I mean, you have to fold and sew it down, you know, not just fold it and try and use it, you know. You have to fold it and sew it down. Sewn inside, you know. You see, it looks like that. Okay, that's the kind of thing I was talking to you about. You just sew it in. I hope you try this pattern. I know it's a bit difficult, this pattern, but happy looming.